Today we are discussing how I paid off more than $25,000 worth of debt over the past couple months and how I have under $25,000 remaining. My name is Michael Kubera. Let's get into the details here and hopefully I'm able to inspire and educate others so they don't make the same mistakes I did. I certainly will never forget this lesson. It was extremely painful, but I think it was worth it for my career, for my future financial decisions, and for my overall health and well-being. The state of my life has flipped around many times this year, but I understand myself better. I feel stronger thanks to this knowledge and the experience that I've been through. And sometimes life is the greatest teacher you can have. There's two main ways of paying off your debt. One of them is called the snowball effect and the other is the opposite of this. So with the snowball effect, you're paying off the smallest bill first and moving your way up the ladder. Now, some individuals may see this and they're like, well, that's stupid because you got to start with the largest amount. That is the second method. And once you're done paying off the largest amount, which has the largest interest, means you're losing money if you're doing the snowball effect, then and only then after you have paid off the number one bank, personal loan, car loan, whatever it was that was just sucking up all your money, then you can move down and relax and you're making more money each month because every dollar you save is a dollar you earn. That would be perfect if we could just stick to a plan. Unfortunately, humans are very complex creatures and some of us just don't have strong willpower. They lose steam because they don't see enough progress being made. It doesn't matter if the number one debt has the most amount of interest to it, because if it's $15,000 and then you have 5 other debts that are $50, $200, $300, $738. Well, you're paying $300 off of the $15,000 every single month for like a year, for 2 years, and you're like, oh my God. So I paid off 300 times 12, that's a couple thousand, but it's still here and I got 6 debts and oh my God. You psych yourself out and then you stop paying your debt and then the interest accrues and you're stuck, or you're in an even worse position than you were in before. You spend all your money on things you shouldn't and before you know you're homeless. Sounds crazy, but I'm sure there's at least a couple individuals that have done that. People just give up with debt. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna stop paying it. I already paid off thousands of dollars, but it's really weird that the more you spend, the more you pay off, the more things you sell, the less motivation you have towards paying off your debt, unless you're really, really close to the end. For example, in my position, I paid off more than half, but it is so demotivating to still see a huge figure, $25,000. It's like, whoa, you know, especially if you go from making $100,000 in a month to making like $1,000 to making negative in a month. You're like, how am I gonna pay that off? Oh my God, I'm just gonna stop working. And then you go down this degenerative spiral. In my case, I'm paying off the debt that has interest because I have only one debt remaining that has interest every single month. It is the second largest debt. It has like $5,000 left to it. It is a bank, it's a credit card, and the first credit card, I canceled my American Express Platinum. See ya, goodbye. Now I'm on a payment plan that doesn't have interest anymore on it, because they understand that furthering interest rates on already defunct debts may scare some of their customers off and they're not going to get a single dime back. So American Express is a set $375. What? Power's going to go out. They're going to cut my power off. American Express is a set $375 every single month. It was for 33 months. Now it's less than that because I've done a couple payments. Bank of America, I do not want to be doing the minimum payment. Anybody that does that is receiving the highest amount of interest. Even if it's only a couple dollars more than the minimum payment, I'm thinking of it this way. Every single dollar that I pay in, I'm saving myself a cent that month. And if I don't pay it, well, then it's a cent every month after that. And then it's just gonna keep rising. So whatever method, or maybe you're doing a mix of both, as long as you're making payments every single month and you're keeping track of the interest that is getting accrued onto your account, and how you can remove interest in certain cases like I was able to for the Amex, it's going to make your journey a little bit easier. So now we're going to go through some of the mistakes I made to get myself in this predicament, how I'm going to get myself out of it, And hopefully I don't repeat these mistakes ever again, but we'll see. The reason this is taking way longer than it should be was that thousands of dollars went out the window just due to fees alone. So the longer it takes for you to pay off your debt, the more interest that there's on it. If you take a look at your bank statements, you're able to see that if you do the minimum payment alone for the next couple of years, well, then you're screwed because suddenly you're paying 4 times the original debt in certain cases. It depends what's your APR. But let's say you owe $3,000. Well, if you're making the minimum payment, I don't know, let's say $20, $30, whatever it is. In certain cases, you may end up paying $10,000, $12,000 over a lifetime, whatever crazy absurd number that it isn't in your head until you realize that over a long-term period of time, that's what you ended up paying. The most important thing is to stay motivated throughout this entire journey. So you have to probably save up a couple $100 or $1,000 into an emergency fund. This emergency fund is essentially the next 1 month plan. So for the next 30 days, you have food, you have shelter, you have, I don't know, you break your leg, your dog is dying, something crazy is happening that you didn't plan for, you have some cash. So you're psychologically a little bit better. You're like, well, if nothing happens, at least I know I have that $1,000. If nothing happens, great. Okay, so I'm finally under $25,000 worth of debt. I'm still gonna be paying this off for months and months, and I'm kind of dragging this on for way longer than I thought I would, but I've already made decent progress paying off more than half of what was originally owed. So the reason this is taking longer is, apart from debt, you still have to factor in living costs. Now, being in Poland, my living costs are much, much lower. I also transferred apartments, so I'm paying less. I sold all my fancy items, or at least most of them. What I haven't sold yet is already been listed, and there's multiple factors that are leading into it being an extended debt repayment. When the crypto economy crashed, not only did people lose money through their investments, but also if they had a lot of income coming through job opportunities or companies emailing them about gigs, suddenly those sources just dried up right out of nowhere. So your expenses are still high, and in certain cases they actually went up. When companies aren't making as much as they used to, they will try and increase their prices. Your income has dried up, and the money that you had was lost through the markets. So what do? You have to find new sources of income, and every time you get paid, a portion of that has to go to paying off debt. In the previous video, I was discussing how my Rolex was probably the best purchase I made in comparison to the Hermes belts and Louis Vuitton bags and everything that majorly depreciated in value or I couldn't sell. The Rolex, even in a used state, you can make profit off of it, at least with my little American tax benefits. Now, what I did immediately with that money, I started looking for a new apartment. I paid for 6 months up front with also the energy and the water bills included. I actually paid more than was the recommended amount just so I can have the bills regulated. As in, if I'm using a lot of water, if I'm using a lot of electricity, I want that out of the way. I don't want to care about it. And that's for the first 6 months. So if the next 6 months, because it's a 12-month plan, if the bills aren't as high as I expected, whatever, I'll save myself 50 bucks or something. I don't know. The utility bills in Poland are nothing really. The internet, again, nothing. A couple times cheaper than in America. And also, in regards to the internet, it's a couple times cheaper and a couple times faster. I'm paying currently for 600 megabyte speed. Hopefully one day I can get that to a couple gigabyte. But anyways, my previous rent was double this amount. Since I paid for 6 months up front, I don't care. It really did help alleviate like 30% of my stress. I don't have to worry about what's gonna happen for the next month. I have a couple $100 on me. It's sort of the emergency fund. Again, helps with stress. I'm paying my phone bill, I'm paying the internet, I'm making sure that these small little utility bills are all paid for. Unfortunately, I have received silly little debt emails. Something like this, which I'm gonna talk about in another video, completely silly. That I'm not including into the $25,000. That I'm not paying for. I canceled that plan. See you, goodbye. Also, it's in another country, which nothing's going to happen, especially for that amount. The worst mistake, or at least the silliest mistakes, I guess you could say, was not paying for a gym bill, which was like $20. And I honestly thought that plan was canceled, but I guess not. I'm not sure where we are with that, but that $20 definitely, I'm gonna pay it off as soon as I get a message about it, but I'm not sure what to do with it. I have more pressing matters such as this, which is crazy. I refuse to pay it, but I still included that in the $25,000 because I know most likely my emotions. Well, technically living in Poland and being an American citizen, I could skip out on thousands of dollars worth of debt and just never come back here again. Whatever, they're not going to have access to my foreign bank account. But I really enjoy living here. It is much cheaper. Bay is amazing, so I'm forced to pay it off. But if there is one lesson to be learned from here, I went to Mexico. I was traveling for business and I forgot to pay the internet. I was like, whatever, I'll pay it when I get back home. And it was, I don't know, this was a second router because I had 2 routers. Eventually they shut the internet off for that one. I didn't pay for 4 months because when I got back, I was like, yeah, I'll pay it next month. And then I procrastinated. And after the 4th month, they shut it off. I was like, oh, whatever. You know, it's like $50. I don't care about $50. And that $50 came back to haunt me because they slapped a fine of over $500, which later only grew because then it was handed off to a debt collection agency, which they slapped on a couple hundred more zloty. So currently, $50 turned into $660, and it's only going to grow. But with this particular debt, there is hope. Being in Poland, the lawyers are cheaper, and I'm going to bundle up multiple debts. So when I'm done, finish paying off the American debts, the only thing I have left is the Polish debt, which is less than the American debt. It's not going to affect my American credit. It's not going to affect a lot of things in my life because it's currently just not important. Like the major Polish debt, I haven't even received one phone call, one email, like whatever. I know it's not going to go away, but also the laws are a little bit different here in Poland. Wherever you are in the world, though, most likely here's the case. If a company, a bank doesn't receive your payment, eventually they're going to grow tired of just racking up interest because they know it's going to plateau somewhere. It has to plateau because if it keeps going on, you're never going to pay it. The company's never going to get its money back. So after a couple months or maybe after a couple of years, if they're really persistent, they slap on some interest and they're like, you know what, we're just going to bundle this along with other people that had debt. And then we're going to sell it somewhere on an exchange in a market. And there's other companies, debt collection agencies, that are more than happy to take it. They're going to purchase it for probably 10-15% of what it's worth, and they're going to try and get 100% of the money back. But this is the important factor. If they purchased it for 10%, let's say it's a $10,000 debt, they purchased it for $1,000, and you suddenly call them up and you're like, well, listen, I haven't paid the $10,000 in the past 2 years. I don't have $10,000. Like, even if you went to court right now, you can check all my bank accounts, I just don't have even $5,000. You're not going to get this money. And I'm serious, like, I haven't paid it off in the past 2 years. You can check. More than happy to show you guys. Obviously, you don't want to give them access to your bank accounts, but it's very easy if they go to court and then the court takes over your bank accounts and you have nothing in there. Well, it's not like money's going to appear in there randomly. But guys, I can pay $2,000 today, as long as I have a written notice, and this is very important for the credit bureaus, a written notice either by email or, we're going to do a contract here that this $2,000 wipes the $10,000 debt. And if they say no to that, hang up the phone and be like, all right, well, that's that. We have nothing to talk about here. And then you got to be persistent about it. And if they really, really aren't budging, then you can do $2,500, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever you want to do. And you can go all the way up to $10,000 if that is what you eventually want to do and you're just so tired of this debt. If you do not have the money and $5,000 is all you have, then you can go to $5,000. And every single time they say no to $5,000, you're like, all right, hang up the phone. And eventually after a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, a year, they're going to be like, all right, F it. We're going to do it. Here we go. Yeah, all right, we'll sign it. See you. Goodbye. You just paid off your $10,000 debt. And then you go to the next debt collection agency where the next bank, the next company, whoever you owe money to, and you just negotiate. The most important thing is staying firm in your position and just letting the time pass. They're going to try and collect as many times as they can. They're going to send so many text messages and emails and calls. And for every single one, they're going to charge you. And eventually, you're going to try and get into court. But don't be fooled. Court is actually a good thing in certain cases. For debts that are only a couple $100s or less, usually it doesn't make sense. Especially in America, if a lawyer costs a couple thousand, a company's not going to care about spending money to try and get less money back. Plus all the time, energy, resources, they have other people who owe them $100,000, $5 million that they're gonna be like, you know what, let's take care of these guys first. But if you owe $100,000, you are that guy. Depending on where you live, depending on the situation, yeah, it might be worth it to get a lawyer. Because that is the second round of negotiation. Once you are in court, your lawyer is able to negotiate for you. In certain cases, your debt might even be thrown out completely. In other cases, you might want to go bankrupt because you have no money, you have no income, and that might be the best source of a way out. Although bankruptcy will cost you some time and some money. It's going to be $5,000 or around there. There's different bankruptcies, and that's going to stay on your report for a very, very long time. If you are an executive of a company, you're not going to be able to hold any executive positions for the next 7 years. So if you have huge amounts of debt and you're still having your job, well, I wouldn't go that route. Every situation is different, but regardless of what's going on, one of the main mistakes that I made was spending exorbitant amounts really, really quickly on stupid stuff that you don't need to impress people that don't care about you, right? So all of that designer stuff, goodbye, see it depreciated in value. But that actually wasn't the source of me losing all my cash. My mistake was, I'm not going to be a 20-year-old kid that blames it on my age, or blames it on the government, or blames it on the bank, or blames it on other friends, family, any outside external factors. Screw crypto, screw the stock markets. I'm gonna blame it on myself. I'm gonna accept responsibility like an adult. But I'm also not going to go fully hard on myself and try and demotivate myself and tell myself I'm retarded. Some people do that. They're like, oh. Again, if you want to pay off your debts fully and build an empire, you need that motivation, you need that passion, you need that energy still flowing through you. So I spent a lot of money on stupid stuff, which even if I were to gain a lot of money right now, I do have rules established. Okay, well, if I have X amount, then I can spend 10% on this, and do I really need it? And I'm gonna wait this amount of time. But for right now, I'm not even worried about that. I'm focused on the debt. I don't want to be spending money on things that aren't necessary. I know time is precious. I have 6 months paid for, but I don't want to worry about the next 6 months. So I'm focusing on creating other sources of income alongside heavy spending and losing a lot of money within a week, within a month. My crypto investments didn't do so well. They made me a lot of money, but they also lost me money. I tried expanding business too soon, too quickly. I had my own office, I had my own employee, and I had other side employees, like part-time employees that were doing graphics here and there, an intro and outro. Those were costing $800, $900 a piece. The office is one of the major Polish debts, and out of that, if I didn't take up the office alongside the employee, that would be an additional $15,000 worth of capital that I'd have, and instead of $25,000, I'd have $10,000 right now. But it happened. It was like over $2,000 every single month that was going to this office space. I wanted something straight in the capital. I wanted a beautiful view. And at the time of signing that contract, I was wearing a $1,000 suit, a $10,000 watch. I had a bag that was worth a couple thousand. My crypto portfolio was worth over 100,000 or around there. I had more than enough to pay for the next 12 months of my apartment and this office and employees and all the expenses. But I kept it in there. That was another mistake. I was using credit cards and I was thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to pile in as much money as I can into stocks, into crypto, mainly crypto. Whereas I previously had rules, I was breaking them. Big, big, big mistake. It cost me a lot of money and energy. I feel like I aged 5 times faster every single month I was in debt, and I'm still in debt, but it is a very valuable lesson here. You know, here's the thing, you gotta understand, I made a lot of money for a 19-year-old that did very little work to earn that money. And whereas before, I have had many periods in my life where I made a couple $100s when I was 12 or 13 years old, or maybe that was 14, and then I spent it. Okay, then I do something different and I make a couple thousand, I burn through that. Okay, whatever. So I constantly kept coming up with new ideas, and since I had no expenses, I was able to do so easily. So with that in mind, I was confident that, okay, I can finally figure out something. When I moved to Poland, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had a couple $100s in my bank account. I had enough money to pay off next month's rent, but like no money for food and stuff. Obviously I could go to my family, but I didn't want help from my family, right? Because this was the fifth time I moved out. I was like, no, I'm not moving back in. I'm an adult. This is what happens. I don't want to go to college. Eventually I did, and then I dropped out because Bitcoin and crypto and everything was doing really, really well. And I started doing ICO reviews. I got a couple phone calls. Here you go. Suddenly my first review was $600, just like that. And then 800, 1,000, 2,000. And I kept pushing it until there was one deal, one video made $5,000. One video made $5,000. So essentially a couple hours work, and this is like easy work, it's not like physical labor, it's nothing crazy. A couple hours work, and there's constantly just more and more emails coming in, and I was thinking, I can push this even further. There's YouTubers I knew that were making $10,000, $20,000 personally. ICO crypto guys that he didn't have a lot of subscribers. Like my other channel right now, it's approaching 69,000 subscribers. If I had that a year ago, there's no doubt in my mind I would have been a millionaire. Now I probably would have lost just as heavily as my millionaire friends did. I had people who were above 1 million who, you know, they nearly lost everything. Now, of course, when you have more money, the more difficult it is for you to get into debt unless you do really, really risky things. But there was many opportunities when a company, especially if it was a token deal, they would have no problem doing $8,000, $10,000 deals. So 5,000 was the limit in terms of Bitcoin or Ethereum. Those two were major cryptos. But in terms of token values, I was able to secure an $8,000 deal, which I later got a bonus. Just, hey, here you go, free money, because there's more of this crypto that's being produced, and here's a gift for being really awesome. And at the same time that, which was into hash, it went up to like, you know, $30,000 later. When it went up, it finally went on to exchanges. This was January, February, right? So I received everything earlier. I received everything much, much earlier in November, December, but I knew that in a couple months, you know, it's going to be worth a lot, and it was more than I expected. So suddenly $30,000 payday. Whoa, that was crazy, because I did a live stream, I did a video. At the same time, there was thousands of dollars rolling in every single week from ICO reviews. Then there was thousands of dollars coming in for me holding the crypto, maybe diversifying a little bit, but mainly just holding. And then I had a really good month on YouTube where Kubera itself, within like the second month, or maybe it was the first month, made $1,000 in ad revenue, where my other channel, which was double, triple, quadruple the size of Kubera at the time, I can't remember what it was, it had $200, $300 coming in terms of AdSense. I had to make a Patreon. So you see a huge, just everything's blowing up, right? Then I get a phone call and I got paid in cash. I've never seen so much cash before in my life. $17,000 right there. And all around me, I see people becoming millionaires. There was one point where I had a dinner in a fancy restaurant here in Poland. And in Poland, you know, people are getting paid on average $1,000 a month or less for certain jobs, right? For the better ones, it's depending on where you are, right? In Warsaw, obviously it's going to be more, $1,500, $2,000. But even still, let's say $3,000 per month. You're living really well here. What's $3,000 back in Chicago or New York? That's nothing. You can get a 1-bedroom apartment for that in certain cases. So obviously, if you're making a lot of money really quickly, you're young, you're surrounded by millionaires all around you, the rules that you've made before, where I'm going to be super careful with investing, I'm going to be super careful about this, I'm going to be skeptical, you slowly keep breaking them, and you're pushing the limits. You're listening to all these millionaires, and you see people literally happening overnight success, like, I guess you could say it. Couple $100,000 profit just out of nowhere, right? I remember one YouTuber told me he made $600,000 in a single deal. $600,000 in a month. And this was my mentality, that you're thinking in a month, that's how much money he made. Of course, not every month's going to be the same, but that's the mentality you're thinking. So they're like, well, if I made $10,000 last month, then I'm making a 6-figure income easy. I broke the 10K, now I broke 100K, and the next step is for me to become a millionaire, right? So when I was the only person sitting at that dinner that wasn't a millionaire, I knew that, hey, I'm not too far away. And was I close? In certain respects, yes. In terms of financial value, my net worth never really skyrocketed past $100,000. I had money flowing in for a couple months. I was spending it here and there, of course, that you can see now with a little bit of an explanation. Okay, spending $20,000 in a single month isn't so crazy anymore when you made like 50,000, right? But I got greedy, and eventually a lot of people got greedy, and I wanted to become a millionaire now. I wanted to become a millionaire like immediately. I wanted the Ferraris, I bought the Rolex, I bought everything imaginable that I had ever dreamed of, and the next thing literally was, okay, buy a car or buy a house, because in Poland it's much cheaper. So you're making, insane, ludicrous amounts of money that everybody around you, normal people, right? The average citizen, the guy working at Starbucks, the guy working at Subway, in your mind, they're making here in Poland like $3 an hour, $4 an hour, while let's say you just closed an $8,000 deal where, you put 2 hours of effort into it. All around you, everybody at Skype, everybody who's in crypto is making huge amounts of cash. Yeah, there was that point where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna risk it all. And what I did was stupid, but again, I'm only 20 years old. I got myself into debt, huge amounts of debt, $50,000, and now I'm at $25,000. I'm not always going to be in debt. I am going to get out of this, and once I do, it's rather easy to save up because my expenses are low. What I am doing, what I'm investing my time into right now, most likely it's going to pay off, as it's not been once or twice or 3 or 4 times. There's been so many times in my life that after 6 months, after 12 months, after 18 months of investing my time into something, if I'm constantly working on it, then the money starts flowing in, and then it's exponential growth. Just as it was an exponential decline earlier this year, it's very easy once all the debts are paid off. So that's what keeps me driving. I'm like, okay, I got this. And worst case scenario, if all fails, I go back to university, right? Because I'm still super young. Maybe I'm crazy, but in my mind, I do think that a lot of people can become rich. I mean, I got a taste of it. I'm still hungry for it, but I understand now you got to take it slow. Even in those really good months, invest most of it, diversify it in multiple avenues that you're capable of tracking and a lot about, because if it's just like, oh, I don't know about this, I have no idea what I'm doing with this, you're probably going to lose it. And if you don't know and you don't have the time, it's better if you just keep it until you do get the time to learn about it. So a big mistake was just falling in with the crowd, following everybody, because you think, oh, okay, well, these guys are millionaires, they know what they're doing. But some people got lucky, I guess, with Bitcoin. I hate using that term because there's so many decisions you're making on an average hourly basis because of the volatility. You're like, do I sell it? Do I buy it? Do I sell it? Do I buy it? Do I sell it? Do I buy it? That's a constant decision. I got greedy. I wanted to triple, quadruple, 10x what I already 20x'd, right? So I just kept all my money in there. And these were huge amounts of money. This was like a Maserati that just, a Range Rover, Rolexes, literally flying out the window. Within a week, 70K, boom, crashed. And at that point, I didn't want to pay off my debts. And I'm like, you know, I would rather be in debt than miss out on the opportunity. You know, that's fine. It hurts to lose 50K, but I'm going to have an opportunity cost of $500,000. I thought what I was doing was the right thing. Obviously, that was a stupid thing because it was totally unsecured. I could have done it in a worse way. There's so many stories of people doing it in way, way more riskier methods, losing way more amounts of money. But investing into a few choices, holding on to it for dear life, harder on everything, you know, there's going to be the crap coins out there. And the greed kind of overwhelms you, so you can't get too emotional. That everybody keeps repeating. I was neglecting other incomes because I focused so heavily into a couple. And oh boy, here is a long list, but I lost a lot of money. I wasn't able to pay off the debts at the very beginning because I was expecting money to keep flowing in. So not only did the crypto market crash and a lot of the offers stopped coming in, but any offer that did come in, suddenly it wasn't absurd rates of $8,000 per video, $5,000. It eventually went back down to a couple $100 per video, which is why you don't see ICO reviews on my channel anymore. Or if you do, it's one here, one there. It's helping me pay off my debt. I neglected a lot of emails during my time. I missed out on $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 deals because I didn't care about it. I was working with companies, with millionaires, and I had giant equity shares, all the way up to 5%. I was a partner, right? So when you own parts of the company and the coins, or at least, you know, you kind of owned a coin, which I learned you always have to take coins up front. If the company doesn't have coins, move on. There's plenty more companies out there. Whenever you're signing contracts, get a lawyer at the very beginning. It wasn't such a big problem for me, but I more so saw this with other people. You could get screwed. I signed a lot of deals and I made a lot of deals where it was 100% token based because I was greedy, right? So $5,000 isn't enough. I want $50,000. And the only way I'm getting that without much experience is in a token based deal where I had multiple deals where I was expecting $20,000 payday, $15,000 payday, $5,000 payday, never arrived. Or like B token, if you guys remember, I made a video about that. Lost a couple $1,000s just from it being delayed. I had plenty of smaller deals like that, but you know, it's a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, a couple $100 there. And while the market was crashing, these companies didn't want to pay out. Some didn't, and there goes tens of thousands of dollars, which I'm still in a better position than other people. I do have in one of my wallets what was $15,000 worth of coins. They never went on an exchange. That happens too. You get paid and the company just disappears. The people, you know, there's been so many cases like that where I have YouTuber friends who had a couple $100,000 worth of coins that overnight went to zero. So huge mistake right there. And then when I finally did learn, I accepted an advisory role with another company, and people were complaining that it was a lot of money per month, right? I was supposed to be a salary, except the salary was 100% in tokens. And the reason I did that was, hey, you know, $5,000 per month isn't so bad. I can pay off my debts, but I want $15,000 per month. So if it goes back up to, you know, even 1/10 of ATH all-time high, I'm good. I can easily get my Mercedes G-Wagon. So while I was $20,000 in debt, I'm still thinking about spending $100,000 on a car because my mind is still in that mentality where only later I realized, oh crap, you know, 5 figures worth of coins just went to zero. Here that went to zero, whoa, and then you start calculating it. I wasn't looking into the bank statements, and even now, even months later, I have to call banks to try and remove certain things. $20 here, $100 there, $500 there. Some charges I don't recognize. Some were double charged at a restaurant. There was $1,500. This $1,500 hurt so much, I messed up an airline ticket. I was buying an airline ticket for somebody else, business class, for my company. The company paid me back for one of the tickets because I had to buy a second one. The mistake was on my end, and I was like, all right, well, no worries. I'm going to call the bank and sort this out since the company didn't want to give me a refund. And the bank's like, well, for the first time ever, the bank told me no. I was like, what do you mean no? This isn't my fault. So they did an investigation, and turns out they screwed up the first investigation, but regardless, they decided, you know what, it's still going to be a no. They sided with the company. So $1,500 went like that. Thousands and thousands of dollars literally being lost every single day. You start neglecting everything at that point. You completely go down this downward spiral. You don't want to pay off your debts. You're stuck in contracts that your expenses are like... I was worried about my credit score when I shouldn't have been. I should have just cut the credit cards immediately and been like, oh, it's fine. But what I did was to get another good rating for 1 month, because I had a really good credit score, like 750. Now it's like, okay, it's near 600 again, which isn't so bad considering I'm $50,000 in debt. And there was a crazy period where I was like, oh, do I have to announce the bankruptcy? I don't know. I was willing to sacrifice hundreds of dollars in terms of PayPal fees, in terms of bank fees, to take money from one bank account, go on credit, send it over to another account to pay that off. And that cost me hundreds of dollars that I didn't have. Last couple of mistakes here. I know this is a huge long video, but it might be entertaining. It might be educational for some. So later when I was in a depressed state, I did horrible negotiations and I panicked and I just wanted any money. So I had multiple occasions where I could have had 6 figures within a couple of hours from calling up the right people and negotiating smart. But what I did was I just abandoned everything. I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell my percentage equity. And I took something that even at one of the companies I worked with, they said it was an undervalued position. It was undermining the company, essentially, what I told them my percentage was worth. And that's because I freaked. You're in such an emotional state where, I accepted a couple $1,000s for something that was worth way, way more. Not having emergency cash on hand, and also the worst one, well, it's not, at this point, everything seems the worst, right? I was emotionally attached to my materialistic possessions, and I didn't want to sell because I was in such a state of denial that, oh no, everything's going to be fine. The markets are going to turn back around. The offers are going to start flying back in the window. Everything's going to be all Gucci. I held on to my things as my debt kept... And eventually I was forced to sell my coins, which some of them did go up. Some of them went to zero, essentially. And at that point, it was too late. And only months later did I start selling my things, where later I was forced to sell certain things. If I had more time, I probably could have had a couple $1,000 more and not just having to panic sell my Louis Vuitton bag, my Hermes belt, my Gucci shoes for hundreds of dollars off sale, which now you know that you're able to purchase designer items in a crash or after a crash. As long as it has receipts, it's authentic. It might be a little bit used, but you're able to save 50%, 40, 60, 70, 80% in certain cases on stuff that was only a couple months worn. One hat that was worth $400, well, it was worth later much, much less, but due to the designer brand, I only wore it twice before it had to be shipped off. I'm thinking in terms of opportunity cost. So not only did I lose a lot of money, I lost a lot of opportunities. I lost a lot of health. I feel like I lost years just due to stress. There was plenty of nights where I did nothing or I couldn't sleep and I was like, oh! I think my life's back on track. It is slow progress, but hey, here's my journey. So if there's one thing to be learned, and this is actually kind of funny because we're going to be discussing about this on my other channel, which if you haven't seen it, if you're new to this, check that out. We're going to be discussing about marijuana stocks on there and how the cannabis craze over the past couple of weeks died down. Maybe it wasn't as crazy as crypto, but we have some other great examples of people losing millions of dollars essentially overnight. But did they really lose it? Profit loss, right? Because most of them, it was on paper. Anyways, I made a lot of mistakes. I hopefully learned from them. It was a 6-figure life lesson, And yeah, my name is Mike Recupera. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hopefully you don't ever have to go through what I have, but at least when I have kids in 10, 15 years, I'll be able to tell them in 30 years, here's how you become a millionaire the smart way. See you guys.